Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel here, to the Tanner Martin Outdoors YouTube channel. For some of you that maybe just came across this video because you want to learn about some bladed jigs and chatterbaits, then you've came to the right place. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down there if you like what you see, and click the little bell right next to it. That's going to give you notifications every time I post a new video. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, I post pretty often, a bunch of fishing content, fishing, hunting, anything outdoors really. I'm primarily focused on fishing, and actually today starts my spring break from college, so the fishing videos are going to be rolling out. It's, you know, as long as it stays nice and 60 degrees here in Indiana. But like I mentioned, today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite baits of all time. You know, this is a really good bait here in the spring, and right now is the time when you really you want to pick some up from Tackle Warehouse or somewhere and get ready to go fish them, and make yourself a box of these baits, because this bait catches fish all year long, but it really catches fish here in the springtime. And that's a chatterbait or a bladed jig, depending on what brand you buy. And today I'm going to teach you guys everything I know about a chatterbait and a bladed jig to make you guys better bladed jig fishermen. And just because what's the point of having information and knowing stuff if you're not going to share it with everybody? So first, guys, let's dive in here and actually talk about what a bladed jig is. The term bladed jig is kind of a universal term because Z-Man has the term chatterbait. You guys will hear me call him a chatterbait or a bladed jig kind of universally. If I'm saying chatterbait, and it's not a Z-Man, I mean bladed jig. It's just kind of the universal term is chatterbait. But basically what a bladed jig is here, guys, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a bladed jig. It's just a normal jig head with a skirt, a trailer on it, except right here on top you're gonna have a blade that's attached to the head. And as you reel this through the water column, this thing is gonna wobble back and forth like this. It's gonna make your rod tip vibrate like crazy. And it's kind of like a spinnerbait where you have those blades on there and those blades are thumping. Well, this chatterbait blade right here is going to wobble back and forth, create a vibration, and kind of have the same effect for you. So with bladed jigs or chatterbaits, there's so many different kinds, you know. Here's a Z-Man original chatterbait, and this has just got kind of your regular rubber style skirt. It's not an actual jig skirt. You can see that it's just a one-layer skirt there. So that's your original chatterbait there. Right here that I showed you guys what a bladed jig was on this chatterbait. This is your normal hand tied. Actually, I got a bunch of these chatterbaits and I wanted them tied in certain colors, and I have a buddy that hand ties jigs, so he tied. These are hand wired tied on this bladed jig here, and this is just a normal jig skirt, your two-layer jig skirt there. And then we have the one that everybody has been craving over lately, especially right now after the Bassmaster Classic or whatever. I don't even know how it started, but they came out with the Z-Man jackhammer. Obviously came out a couple years ago, and they have recently this year, I think it was over the winter, they came out with their fire crawl color. It's like orange, and recently, like, you can't get one anywhere. We all know that the jackhammer, or if you don't, the jackhammer is like the top of the line chatterbait. It's, you know, $15 to $20 depending on where you get it. But that red one, for some reason, people have been craving over it, like going crazy. And Tackle Warehouse has been sold out. You can't buy them anywhere. And people that have them, there's people buying them and selling them on eBay for 50, 60, 70 bucks. I saw one that sold the other day. I think it was actually last night. I saw that it sold for like $105. Like, that's absolutely insane. But it's just another one of them fishing craves. But like I mentioned, the Z-Man jackhammer, that's what this is right here. We're gonna get into colors in a little bit, but this is the Z-Man jackhammer. As you can see, this one's been beat up. It's missing an eye, and this one's caught some fish. And there's a reason that it's caught some fish. And there's a reason that it's $15, and that's because it catches fish. So for me with bladed jigs, I like to start with a baseline, because to me it's all about what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to mimic with my bladed jigs. So for trailers, you really have two options. you have a crawl style and you have a fluke or a swim bait style. So to start with your crawl style trailer, there's so many different kinds and there's so many different good ones, but I just picked a few of my favorite. One that's pretty popular is the Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Crawl right here. It's a real slender profile crawl. It's got 2 kicking legs. It's just a normal, normal crawl style trailer. That's one of my favorite. Also the Yamamoto, I don't even know what they call this. I think it's maybe the Cowboy. It's their grub style. Here's the Yamamoto one. It's got just 2 kicking legs that are gonna kick behind the chatterbait or the bladed jig there. Probably the one I throw the most if I am gonna throw a crawl style trailer is this one right here. It's a Zoom Z Crawl. This is the regular size Z Crawl. You can get the Z Crawl Junior, but I like the regular size because I have more options with it. I can cut it down or leave it long, whatever I want to do. But that's probably my favorite crawl style bladed jig trailer. But as far as your crawl style bladed jig trailers go, they don't just stop there. You have your Rage regular size Menace, you got your Rage Baby Menace, you can put a Rage Crawl on there, or one that I recently just tried is the Reaction Innovations, what is this, the Spicy Beaver that came out last year. That's pretty sweet. So you really got your options there when it comes to crawl style bladed jig trailers. And your next option is a swim bait style trailer. And my absolute favorite swim bait style trailer is the Lake Fork Trophy Lures Live Magic Shad. There's a reason why I keep all these other trailers in their original bags, all these crawls in their original bags, and there's a reason I have a dedicated 3700 size Plano to just live magic shads, and that's because they're absolutely amazing. And I throw it on a bladed jig about 95% of the time. So the cool thing about Lake Fork Trophy Lures and their live magic shad is the color options are endless. These are just a few of their colors. They have so many other colors. You can see white's a big popular one for me. The main deal with the live magic shad is it is just a real small, this is a 3.5 inch, my favorite size for the bladed jig, and it's just a real small, real slender trailer here, and it's just going to have that wag back and forth and really mimics a shad or a swim bait style really well. Along with that live magic shad, you also have some other kind of swim bait style trailers. This really isn't a swim bait style trailer, but it's a good trailer, so I threw it in there. And that's the Zoom split tail, just the split tail trailer there. You can thread it on. It's got 2 real small skinny tails there. That's a really good trailer, and the whole point with your swim bait trailers is just to stay as kind of streamlined as possible, because you're trying to mimic a shad with those trailers. So you had that one. You got your Kitech, popular swim bait. And then another one that's pretty famous and is a good trailer for your chatterbaits is just a typical Zoom or V&M fluke. So now that we've kind of talked about the trailers and your trailers for different options, we're gonna actually talk about what you're trying to do when you're trying to fish a bladed jig. Now, when you're trying to fish a bladed jig, you're trying to imitate something, and I keep my colors pretty simple for the most part. There's 3 things you're trying to imitate when you're fishing a bladed jig. One is a shad, the other one is a bluegill or some sort of bait fish, and then the third one is a crawdad. So colors are pretty simple for me. And it's also going to determine based on your water clarity. So if you're trying to imitate a bluegill or some sort of like perch or something, your typical green pumpkins, watermelon reds, what else do we have in here? Just a bunch of different colors of variations of green pumpkins here, even all the way to the Z-Man jackhammer in the Bee-Height Delight, which is my favorite color. Like I mentioned, this is a really good imitator, and that's kind of got the best of both worlds. You got some white in there, some green pumpkin, imitate that shad, that bluegill, kind of crawdad, imitate it all. The whole thing with the bladed jig is what you're trying to imitate. You want to match the hatch as much as possible, and the whole reason that you have 2 options with trailers, you have the swim bait like this, or you have the crawl, is what do you want that bladed jig to do? Do you want that bladed jig to rise in the water column, come through the top third of the water column, or do you want it to fall? Do you want it to come through the bottom third of the water column? With a swim bait style trailer, one that just has that subtle wag back and forth, there's not going to be as much resistance, and that's going to allow your chatterbait to get down deeper. And that kind of comes with the weights too. You know, if you're trying to get it to rise, you want to throw a 3/8. If you're trying to get that chatterbait down a little deeper, maybe you're fishing a deeper grass flat. And you're trying to tick the top of the grass in 8, 9, 10 foot of water. You want that 1/2 ounce, and with that swim bait style trailer, because that's going to allow it to get down deeper, and you're going to be able to speed up without it raising up in the water column. So when you're trying to pick between, do you want to throw a crawl or do you want to throw a swim bait style trailer like the Lake Fork Live Magic Shad? Like I mentioned, the biggest thing is what do you want, what are you trying to imitate, and what do you want that bladed jig to do? For example, if I'm fishing around shallow cover, maybe lay down trees, shallow boat docks, scattered grass, say 6 to 7 foot or less, then I'm probably going to be throwing that crawl style trailer. And that's the reason that it's better in shallow water is because the two appendages on that crawl style have a whole lot more resistance in the water than that streamline Live Magic Shad. And this is going to have that kicking action that's going to kick just like this, and it's going to allow, with that resistance, it's going to allow the chatterbait, when you reel it, it's going to want to rise up in the water. So you're going to, like I mentioned, fish it through the top third of the water column, and it's not going to try and want to sink as a lot. Like I mentioned, if you're trying to fish that deeper grass, maybe 8, 9, 10 foot of water, you can throw that Live Magic Shad. And now there is exceptions when I do throw the Live Magic Shad up shallow. If I'm trying to imitate a shad, or for example, maybe it's not real windy and you don't want a whole lot of vibration in the water, that Live Magic Shad is good. And that's kind of one of the big deals with your bladed jig is the more wind you have, the better that this thing is going to excel. You got to remember, or think back to most of you that are watching this video that may be older, you guys were around when the spinnerbait craze happened. Spinnerbaits used to be really popular before this kind of took over. When was a spinnerbait? When did a spinnerbait excel? Around cover and when it was windy. That chatterbait is kind of just the new and improved spinnerbait. So the more wind you have, the better this thing is going to work. I know, for example, I know we're not talking about them, but a lipless crankbait. Down on the Tennessee River, Lake Gunnersville, for example, a lipless crankbait in the springtime excels so well. So does a bladed jig or a chatterbait. For example, the first day of the Bassmaster Classic this year down on Lake Gunnersville, the wind blew like crazy. I don't know, 30 miles an hour. It was insane. There's pictures of people like launching their boats over waves. People were breaking things on their boats. But it was so windy that lipless crankbait did not vibrate enough, and they were trying to, you know, obviously fish in those grass flats. They're trying to rip it through the grass, the eelgrass, the hydrilla mix, find those hard spots. But it was so windy they couldn't feel the vibration of their lipless crankbait. So you pick up a thing like the Z-Man jackhammer here, and this thing's gonna vibrate the crap out of your rod tip. You're gonna feel like you're on, like, I don't know, one of those like TINS units that's like vibrates your arms or whatever. It's gonna be insane. So when it's real windy, around cover, grass, wood, rock, it's really good. You know, the jackhammer, or really any bladed jig, has kind of taken, at least for me, the place of a square bill. I'll throw this down a rock bank or down a causeway, the same spot you normally throw a square bill. I'll throw a chatterbait. You know, one of the big deals to throwing a bladed jig or a chatterbait is how fast that blade actually starts to wobble back and forth when your bait hits the water. The faster, the better. The Z-Man jackhammer is really good about that. Like, first 2 cranks of your rod handle, your rod's already vibrating like crazy. The Strike King Thunder Cricket that came out after the jackhammer, same kind of deal. It vibrates really well. And now I know there's been a kind of debate about what's better, the Thunder Cricket or the jackhammer, and I'll give you at least my advice on it. Obviously the blade's different. It's kind of, they have their similarities, they have their differences, and my thing with the Thunder Cricket versus the jackhammer is the jackhammer, its vibration is more like solid. It's like more of a firm vibration. The Thunder Cricket, I think, vibrates more, but it's not as firm. It's not like a real hard vibration. So it's kind of pick your poison. Maybe if it's not as windy, that Thunder Cricket's gonna be better because it's not gonna vibrate as hard. It's gonna vibrate, but it's not gonna like pack a punch as much. as the jackhammer will be. It's really hard to explain unless you've thrown them both and you feel what they feel like. But if you're picking between the Thunder Cricket and the jackhammer vibrates, and it vibrates and packs a punch when it vibrates. The vibration is firm. The Thunder Cricket vibrates a whole lot more, in my opinion, but it's not as firm. It's more of a lighter vibration. So now that we've talked about, you know, the trailers, the actual, you know, dynamics behind the actual bladed jig, I want to talk to you guys about how I trick it up a little bit. So here's a green pumpkin one rigged up with a watermelon red Lake Fork live magic shad. You know that live magic shad is perfect, set up perfect so that the hook comes out right before the first segment there. This one's ripped up. I actually need to put a new one on here, but it's good enough for this example. One thing I like to do is on the ones that have the jig skirt, the double layered, is I like to take it upside down like this. I like to take some scissors and just trim that skirt up so that it's just barely hanging over the blade or flush with the tip of the blade. I like that's pretty good, hangs over the blade about a 1/4 inch. And then I like to take it and flip it back right side up and trim the skirt up so that it comes right to that first segment of where that tail starts the segmentation. I like the skirt to be right there. Doing that allows there to be plenty of skirt still there, yet that trailer sticks out about 2 inches, and when it's coming through the water, it allows the action of the trailer to be shown. Let's talk about the rod and reel now, guys. When I'm throwing a bladed jig or a chatterbait, my favorite rod length, I don't really have a favorite brand or a favorite rod. I'm still trying to figure that out, but my absolute favorite rod to throw this on is a 7.2 or a 7.3 medium heavy rod. You want a rod that's got some tip to it, you know, has got some flex, but goes back into that backbone really fast. This right here is a Shimano X-Age 7.2 medium heavy, fast action. Absolutely love this rod for throwing a bladed jig. Vibrates the crap out of the tip, and you want that soft tip so that you can load it up and skip it under docks, around cover, be able to pitch it. But that backbone, you need that because that chatterbait's got a stout hook, and you gotta be able to control the fish. So not only is the rod important, the reel's also important. I like a 6:3 to 1 or a 7:3 to 1 gear ratio reel. Kind of just depends on what you like. They're both pretty good. This one here's a 6:3 to 1. I tend to reel fast normally, so I go to the slower gear ratio. And then I also like 15 to 20 pound Seaguar Red Label. It kind of depends on what you're trying to do. If you're fishing shallow, in around cover, you might want to go that 20. If you're trying to get down deeper, go to the 15. I normally throw 15 about 80% of the time, and I've only broke off one chatterbait, and it was my fault. Now that we've gone through everything, the chatterbait, the trailers, how you trim it up, how you rig it up, the rod, the reel, the line I like to use. Now onto the retrieve. The retrieve is pretty simple. You cast it out there and you can just do that normal, just crawl it back to the boat, slow roll just like a spinnerbait. And a lot of things that I like to do, and a little tip, especially on that bladed jig where it's got that double skirt and you trimmed it up perfect just like I taught you guys. What I like to do is I cast it out there, right? I start reeling, it starts vibrating. I'm reeling it through the water column, and then all of a sudden I'll do like a little pop of my rod tip, pop like you're popping the spinnerbait, or I'll be reeling and I'll do a little speed up. I'll just be reeling at this speed right here, and I'll just do a quick speed up. And what that's gonna do, now when you've got that chatterbait rigged up just like I taught you, and you're throwing it through the water column and you pop your rod or you speed your reel up real quick, what it's gonna do is it's gonna make that skirt just bounce and just kind of flare out real quick, flare out and come back together. And that chatterbait's just gonna just kind of flare out and come back together. And what that's gonna imitate is like a bluegill or some type of bait fish, especially when you're around shallow cover. This is really good. It's gonna make that skirt flare out, and it almost imitates like the gills of a bluegill, like pop it out, and it's just another way to get that fish to react to that reaction bite. Another really popular way with the bladed jig is to cast it out there, let it sink all the way to the bottom, and just kind of hop it back. Fish it just like a jig. Act like it doesn't even have a blade on. Just hop it back, pop it up. And what that's gonna do is it's just gonna make that jig it's gonna fall to the bottom, it's just gonna pop, pop, fall back down, pop, pop. It's gonna vibrate when you hop it up. that's another great way to do it. If you're fishing around grass, you can cast it out there, you're reeling it through, you get hung up in some grass, give it a hard rip, you know, rip it through the grass, give it a couple rips, and then let it sink to the bottom. And chances are when you start to go reel again, it's not gonna vibrate and you're gonna have a fish on the other end and you just need to lean into them. So guys, I just taught you just about everything I know about chatterbaits or bladed jigs, about all the trailers, the rod, the reel, the line you need, the retrieves, the way to rig it up. You know, chatterbaits and bladed jigs are one of my favorite baits. They're killer in the springtime of year, especially around shallow cover. Fish are active. They're gonna eat just about anything you throw at them. And a bladed jig is a great way to get that springtime bite and catch a ton of fish. Put a ton of fish in the boat. If you're in some tournaments, make you some money. So I want to thank each and every one of you for watching and following along through the video. Hopefully you guys learned something about chatterbait fishing. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Check out some of the other content. We got content coming out like crazy. Go check out some of the Mexico videos. Watch me catch my PB. Watch me catch some big fish. Watch my dad catch a 7-pounder. Watch me go watch me catch like 100 fish in like 45 minutes. Absolutely insane stuff there. I also just dropped some new apparel. I don't have any on right now. I don't even have mine yet. So link will be down in the description. You guys can, there's actually 20% off going on right now, so go check that out. I'll post the code or whatever down in the description, or it'll just automatically apply when you visit the website. They aren't just Tanner Martin Outdoors related, like the TM logo. There's some pretty cool bass logos on there. There's a Patriot bass. There's a sweatshirt with the TM logo right here, and then a cool bass on the back. So go check it out, see if you like anything, and if you do, go ahead and pick it up. Guys, be on the lookout for some new content coming here on my spring break, and maybe if I end up catching a bunch of fish, I'll go on like YouTube Live or something, and we can chat on YouTube Live. But thank you guys for watching, and like I said, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys.